Okay, we're going to look at an important step to learning the guitar or the bass right now. I'm going to cover both those instruments with this video because they're very much the same, which you'll see shortly. We're going to look at tuning, okay? I'm going to look at a couple of different ways of doing this. So we're going to look at using a tuner and we're going to look at doing it by ear. So what I normally suggest is that we learn to do it by ear, but we always check it with a tuner. And I'll show you how we're going to do that. The reason for learning to do it by ear is just because it's good for your ear to learn to hear those notes. So in the last videos you would have learned a little bit about where notes on the guitar are. If you haven't seen those yet, go back and watch those because we're going to relate back to where some of these notes are. So a couple of examples of tuners. This is a pretty standard thing that you'll see around the place. It's just a little boxy tuner. This particular one is a Korg. If you're on our website, I'll chuck a link up where you can get yourself hold of one of these. The only reason, I mean, you can pick from heaps of different tuners on there going through that same link, but the only reason I put this one is because I've had this one for ages. I think I've had this over 10 years now. It just gets thrown around the place. All that's ever happened to it is the battery cover's gone missing a very long time ago, but it just keeps working. So I can recommend that one. That's a Korg one because I've had this one for so long now. Okay, so that's a pretty stock standard type of thing. You'll see it's picking up my voice now. It's got a little mic there. It will pick things up acoustically, and it's also got jacks for plugging in. It's got a jack in and a jack out, so you can plug it in line if you wish to do so. I've never really used it that way. Probably wouldn't suggest it. You'll just chew through batteries. Okay, so that's one type. Another type is a pedal. This is a big pedal that has a tuner in it amongst a whole lot of other stuff, or you can get individual stomp box tuners. The great thing about those is that you can turn your signal off while you tune, which is great if you're playing live because people don't want to hear you tune. Cool. And the third type, this little guy here, which is a headstock tuner. I'm amazed at how these work, but they basically stick on the headstock of the guitar and just pick up the vibrations going through the headstock and work out the tuning from there. The other type you will get are built-in tuners like this one here. Cool. So all of these tuners all work on the same principle. So they generally have different settings for guitar and bass. Some of them you can, like the pedal tuners, you can set to a strobe tuner. A lot of people like those. I don't. I find them too complicated for something as simple as tuning. Basically, they're a thing that'll go faster and faster when you're further away, and then will slow down as you get closer. But I just like the generic chromatic tuner. So for example, this one has different settings for chromatic, guitar, bass, and a bunch of other things that I can't quite see. But we're just going to use either guitar or bass, depending on which instrument we are playing. Okay, so the difference when you change between those, if you've got a bass, it's a much lower frequency, so the tuner needs to reset a little bit to that. So whatever tuner you're using, you always want it set to 440 Hertz. Okay, if you go off that, you'll go out of tune. Okay, so that's just the industry standard. So we're going to learn to use this first, and then we'll go to the ear thing. So the strings are numbered from the top down. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that there is one E, and you'll see it's got a little 1 next to the E. that one there should say 6E. See, that one's 5A. There you go, 6E. Cool. And you'll see there's a needle there. So the objective on whatever tuner you're using, it either uses something like a needle or lights, or a combination of both. You want to get that in the middle. So if I had that flat, it's gone to the left. So I'm just going to turn that up till I get to the right place. And so on and so forth through the strings. So we know that the strings are E, A, D, G, B, E. Cool. On some tuners, it'll have trouble picking up this high E string. Okay, that's a quality of tuner thing. You can get apps that you can put on your phone. I sometimes have them just as like an emergency thing in case I need one, but it's really hard to find one that actually works properly, to be quite honest. And again, you know, some of these headstock tuners, there's cheap ones and expensive ones. Yeah, and like everything else in music, you generally get what you pay for. Yeah, the cheaper it is, the more trouble you're going to have. So, 5th on the low E string, and then the next string down, string 5, which is my A, this one here, played open. Those are both an A note. So they should sound the same. So the way I suggest you start doing this is when your guitar's out of tune, set your low E string, and then play your 5th fret and try and get those two sounding the same. So you can hear that second one's much lower. And here's a little trick as you get better at it. If you play the two together, they make a bit of a chord. So it helps you to get close and just frees up your other hand. So we're getting pretty close there now. Cool, and then the idea is to then check it with your tuner. See how close you got. Just a little bit flat. Cool. And then that carries on down, so the next one, this is a D, and then the open string underneath is a D. Same here, we've got a G and a G. Okay, so here's the tricky one. Because this B string here, okay, string number 2, the B, is set out slightly, we need to come back 1 fret to the 4th fret. So that's a B and that's a B. And then as we come to our high E, or our first string, we come back to the 5th fret. Cool, so that's something just to practice. So set your low string first and then try working out the other ones by ear. It's just going to help develop your musical ear as you go. You might as well get started on that now because it's going to be one of your biggest tools as you go on. So quick look now at how that looks on the bass. So on the bass we have E, A, D, G. So it's just the top 4 strings of the guitar. Everything else is the same, the way you use the tuner. This thing, you don't have to worry about the stepping back 1 fret because we don't have a B string down here. Okay, so if you have a 5 string bass and you have the low B here, actually the 5th fret thing still works, but because it's the relation between the E and B. It's more complicated, don't worry about it, it works. Cool, so the other thing you can do is tune harmonically, if you know how to play harmonics. A harmonic is just resting your finger on the string above a fret, but not pressing it down. And you can go from 5 to 7. Sorry, I don't have this plugged in right now. And that's another way to do it. Some people find that easier to hear, other people find it easier this way. But other than that, same thing. Yeah, set your low E and then try the rest by ear. Okay, so just do one string at a time. Try the first string and then reset that with the tuner before you go into the next string. But that is how to tune a guitar or a bass.